chamber right now has their own sets of policies and procedures that they go through to do. The BIA has their own. They're not ours specific. They're what makes their organization work and do things. And we identified that we needed an economic development process because we're not getting everything that we need. Not necessarily their fault. I mean, they're doing a good job with what they have to do, but they've been doing a lot of the same thing over and over and over, and they're not taking major forward steps. The chamber did take some steps this year by including, I think it was 8 or 10 or 18 more pages in their book with maps and showing that Lambton Shores was a whole. And that was a really good, I think a really good first step. But there's a lot of businesses, as we found out when we were going around looking at businesses as a whole, from the Economic Development Committee, that number one, weren't members of the chamber, weren't members of the BIA, really had nobody over them as a scenario to help them promote more than they did on their own by newspapers, etc. So I think it is a partnership, but the partnership, if they're going to get funds, does need to have some set things that they should do for us, along with TSL as well.
Okay. Dr. Watson.
I guess I'm going to go back to CUF. And Ruth, you like CUF, don't you? You're CUF, right?
Absolutely.
There you go. So if we go back to CUF, and we go back to talking about the fundamental ways in which council can make a difference in the direction of the municipality, one, some form of community strategic planning vision process. I think you've done that with economic development. Started?
Well,
We started. The second is establishing policy that talks about how you get there. And so that the policy framework ensures everyone is on the same page. And I guess that's where I'm trying to get to with this. And maybe economic development is the tool we take. Maybe once you get your report, and if you were recommending a committee, maybe we give economic development direction in terms of its envisioning about how to make the community better, and then we have to come up with a policy on how to do that. But that's my concern right now, is we don't seem to have policy for things. We just seem to be flying by the seat of our pants. And I think that must be a nightmare for the budget process, and certainly for accountability, and for any type of consistency in terms of what service providers can expect of us.
How can we put this
Well,
together?
can I get engaged, and I may misstate something, but it seems to me this is the dilemma when it comes to economic development. We're currently serviced by two agencies, SLEP, Sarnia Lambton Economic Partnership, for the promotion for commercial and industrial development, so on and so forth, and TSL, whose mandate is tourism development. And I think the sense was that we had questions about how well we were being serviced by both agencies, and I think there was a sense in the community, stated that way, that we feel we were being serviced as well as we need to be from TSL, particularly on the tourism side, and that we've had some discussions with TSL about how to do that. There were expressions in the community that we need our own tourism economic development agency, or we should be taking ownership of it. And I thought one of the mandates of the working committee, the economic development committee, was to explore that further to determine whether we're really being well serviced by SLEP, and we're really being serviced well by TSL, although TSL, we need to tune things up, or it's a loss, that we need to fill in a gap that isn't there. And I think the outcome of the economic development task force was to identify, no, we need our own, and some misunderstanding it, economic development steering committee or group to direct that. Because I think generally speaking in the county, the mandate is TSL looks after the tourism promotion, and we're right on the cusp of that relationship at the north end with Huron County and their Ontario's West Coast strategy, and there's a bit of overlap. It just seems like that's not well defined, I guess is what I'm saying. Part of the strategic process is it's not well defined. We don't know who the go-to people are. Where do we direct people? Who's the front person for that? And to to me, it needs to be, we've identified this as an important area. We just need to know who the horses are that we're going to refer it to. It's George and Renee at TSL.
So how do we put that in our plan?
I don't know,
guess
I don't know whether it's premature, because I don't think the economic
They're not done.
task force has
We're not ready.
not ready, so whether this should just be held in abeyance till it has formed it, but
Final report.
One of the things that we found, that we did was about the third meeting, then council was invited to come out and listen to all the speakers come and speak. And we did that for two reasons. One, just to familiarize everybody with what they had to offer, and two, just to hear what they thought that they could do for us, sort of thing. And we also at the same time had Jerry Bierneck come out, who I hadn't even heard of, with his group, which was good to hear, because we've been able, I personally have steered some people towards him, looking for business loans to help do some stuff. But the thing that really came out was when Jerry went and got SLEP to give us that database. And I'm sure we've put 100 names more in that database. And I mean, and that's just the few of us going around finding different businesses. And I know it's not 100%, but I know that the database they had another secondary list that had 70 names on with no information attached. So there was definitely some things there that made me wonder how accurate it would be if somebody went and approached them about who we were in the business world, and where they could go to get things. And it was obvious to me that after we went out physically and knocked on doors and talked to businesses, that there were an awful lot missing. They only have 3 people in the office, so obviously it's not a simple task just to get on the phone and do it. So there's definitely some shortcomings. With that partnership, we're going to be able to give our finished database that is now in, I guess, basically in your hands, Carol, at this point. And we will be able to hand that over to them, and they'll be able to do whatever they want to do. So it was a win-win situation for both of us. However, it was very obvious that there was a lot of lacking stuff there. And the ownership on the businesses to get involved too is theirs. However, from the other end, if it's a new business or it's a business that really didn't know anything about it, they wouldn't even know that they were to approach. So there's definitely some communication that needs to be brought into the partner.
Yeah, I want to also just point out the importance of not relying upon a committee to be taking over responsibilities, which are ours, and we're accountable for those responsibilities. So if a committee gets together, an economic development committee, and they come through and they do whatever they're going to be doing with the broad recommendations, and they come up with recommendations, if a recommendation happens to be we need to have a better policy in this and this, or the policy doesn't do this and this, it will be up to us to have the policy made, not the Economic Development Committee, because I mean that's our responsibility and accountability ultimately. And we will either take the recommendations and run with it or not, depending on if it doesn't fit, because they don't have the full picture. I don't know what we're asking for, but we should have a better picture of everything we're doing with that stuff. So I think we're on the right track actually when you look at this here, economic development, and we've maintained a timely supply, variety of employment plans, and a broad range of business for investors and employers. Well, basically all we're talking about here is a strategic action. We're starting to do that because we actually did form up an economic task force to move towards that, so that we will be able to. It takes a long time to get started. At the same time, we're looking at policy now. We're discussing and debating the policy. So when we do get the Economic Development Committee together, hopefully we'll have some sort of policy we can work with, and we can either amend it or not.
A big part of what they're going to talk about is whether there's somebody hired, or whether there's a budget implication to all of this that we have to look at.
Right now, we don't have any recommendations to hire anybody. That's going to be up to the Economic Development Committee.
But that's the part, and that's I guess, how do we want to go forward with economic development strategically? Is that a position that we create? Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Yeah, just, I'm hoping that maybe we can maybe not spend all afternoon on this point here, and just with regards to TSL, perhaps we can just wait until they do the report at the end of the year. It's coming within 2 months, it should. We're supposed to submit that, and that'll give us an idea of whether this is really fulfilling what our purposes are. They're going to report on those 12 points. So maybe I would make a motion that that we ask the staff to prepare a report with the proposed definitions for our relationship